Welcome to the Trend Reddit channel. This is a place where we come together to share interesting, humorous, and heartfelt stories about family life. Each episode takes us on a journey to explore familiar situations that any of us might encounter in our own families. Let's laugh, reflect, and sometimes even shed a tear together through these meaningful stories. An unexpected act of bravery changed this young boy's life in ways no one could have imagined. What happened next? And why did a millionaire take an interest in him? Before we dive into the story, let me know in the comments where you're listening to this from. Thank you for joining us on Trend Reddit, and now, let's begin today's story. Liam, a thoughtful and empathetic 14-year-old boy with a maturity well beyond his years, walked down the bustling main avenue of his city on a crisp autumn afternoon. The air was filled with the faint aroma of roasted chestnuts from nearby vendors, blending with the golden hues of fallen leaves swirling around his feet. This was his favorite time of year, a brief period when the city seemed to glow with the warmth of the season, and Liam often spent his afternoons wandering, lost in thoughts about the world and his place in it. On this particular day, as he strolled past the familiar shops and cafes, a commotion near a high-end restaurant caught his attention. A crowd had gathered outside, their curious eyes drawn to a scene that quickly filled Liam with a sense of indignation. An elderly couple, who appeared somewhat worn yet carried themselves with quiet dignity, was being berated by Tom, the restaurant's owner. The couple, later introduced to him as Grace and Hank, stood helplessly in the face of Tom's loud accusations, their hands trembling slightly as they tried to explain themselves. Grace, a petite woman with silver hair neatly pinned back, held her husband Hank's hand tightly. Hank, though frail, had a certain steadiness in his gaze as he spoke to Tom, trying to maintain some composure in the humiliating situation. Their clothes, while clean, were plain and slightly worn, marking them as people who were not accustomed to luxuries. They appeared uncomfortable in front of the upscale establishment, their modest attire starkly contrasting with the restaurant's posh surroundings. "Please, we'll find the money," Grace's voice was soft yet resolute. "I'm sure we had it when we came in." Tom, a stout man with an air of superiority and impatience, scoffed, crossing his arms over his chest. "If you can't pay, then you don't belong here. This isn't a charity, and I don't run a soup kitchen for people like you." The disdain in Tom's voice sent a ripple of disapproval through the onlookers, yet no one moved to intervene. Most people, as Liam had observed many times, preferred to avoid confrontations or merely watched from a distance, hoping for a swift resolution. Liam felt a surge of compassion as he looked at the couple, who were clearly distressed yet too proud to walk away without settling the bill. He could see the strain etched on their faces, the embarrassment of being at the mercy of a man who showed no intention of offering them any grace or understanding. Without thinking twice, Liam pushed his way through the small crowd, his heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and determination. Approaching Tom, he squared his shoulders and looked up at the much taller man with a calm but unwavering gaze. "I'll cover their bill," Liam declared, pulling out his wallet with steady hands. Inside were a few bills he had saved up, money he had intended to use for a special birthday gift for his girlfriend, Amelia. The thought flickered briefly in his mind, but he brushed it aside, feeling that this moment called for something more meaningful than a material gesture. Tom eyed Liam with surprise, then disdain. "You? A kid, paying for them?" "Yes," Liam replied firmly, holding out the cash. "I can pay for them, and they shouldn't have to go through this." Grace and Hank's faces lit up with surprise and gratitude as they watched this young stranger stand up for them. Grace placed a trembling hand over her heart, visibly moved by Liam's gesture, while Hank offered a small nod of appreciation, his eyes moist with emotion. Tom snatched the money from Liam's hand, muttering under his breath as he turned back inside, clearly irritated by the unexpected resolution. The crowd slowly dispersed, some people throwing Liam approving glances, though no one bothered to offer their own assistance or words of kindness to the couple. With Tom gone, Liam turned to Grace and Hank, who were now regarding him with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Grace reached out to take his hand, her grip surprisingly firm for someone her age. "Thank you, young man," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We don't know what we would have done if you hadn't stepped in. You've shown us such kindness." Liam offered a modest smile, feeling a deep warmth spread through him at their appreciation. It was nothing, really. I just didn't think it was fair the way he treated you. Hank patted Liam on the shoulder. Your parents must be proud of you. It's rare to see someone as young as you with such a strong sense of right and wrong. Liam shrugged, brushing off the praise. I just did what felt right. No one deserves to be treated that way, especially not for something as small as a meal. As they parted ways, Grace and Hank offered Liam a final look of gratitude, and he watched as they walked down the street, their heads held a little higher, their spirits seemingly restored by the kindness they had experienced. Liam felt a profound sense of satisfaction, though he couldn't ignore the small pang of regret at having spent the money he had intended for Amelia's gift. But in his heart, he knew that what he had done was more meaningful, a choice driven by empathy rather than personal gain. As Liam made his way back home, he couldn't help but think about the couple, wondering what had led them to such a vulnerable moment and what their lives had been like. He sensed that they had a story filled with hardship, yet he also saw resilience in their eyes, a silent strength that had likely carried them through years of challenges. His mind buzzed with reflections on kindness and sacrifice, concepts that had only ever seemed abstract to him until now. Today, however, he had lived them, and the experience left him both humbled and inspired. But the weight of his decision settled in as he remembered the upcoming party for Amelia. She was someone who had a way of brightening his days, and he had been looking forward to seeing her smile when she opened the gift he had planned. He felt a hint of nervousness at the thought of attending her birthday empty-handed, but he reassured himself that he had made the right choice. After all, a gift was just an object, but the act of standing up for someone in need was something that felt far more lasting. In his mind, he resolved to explain everything to Amelia, hoping she would understand the depth of his decision. He couldn't predict her reaction, but as he walked away from the scene with Grace and Hank, he felt a quiet confidence that he had taken his first steps toward becoming the person he wanted to be, someone guided by compassion, no matter the personal cost. The following day, as the sun began its descent and the sky filled with soft, warm hues, Liam found himself standing outside Amelia's house, bracing for her birthday celebration. He felt a flicker of hesitation as he looked down at his empty hands, aware of the absence of the gift he had planned for her. The memory of yesterday's encounter with Grace and Hank returned to him, filling him with a quiet pride, yet the reality of arriving empty-handed cast a shadow over his confidence. He stepped inside, immediately greeted by laughter and the lively atmosphere typical of Amelia's gatherings. The house was adorned with cheerful decorations, balloons tied to chairs, and a large birthday banner strung across the living room wall. Friends and family surrounded Amelia, each carrying a brightly wrapped gift, their smiles wide and voices full of joy. As Liam approached her, he noticed the excited gleam in her eyes dimmed slightly when she saw he wasn't holding a present. "Hey, Liam," she said, her tone cheerful but edged with a trace of disappointment. "I'm so glad you made it." Liam offered a sheepish smile. "Of course, Amelia. I wouldn't miss it for the world." They chatted briefly, but he could sense a slight tension between them, a feeling that became harder to ignore as the evening progressed. Eventually, Amelia took him aside, her expression shifting from cheerful to curious, then to an emotion he struggled to define, somewhere between hurt and confusion. "Liam, I know you're thoughtful and always put so much effort into things," she began, hesitating. "But I couldn't help noticing you didn't bring a gift. You've never forgotten before, and I thought this year, especially." Her words trailed off, and Liam could see how much this mattered to her. Taking a steadying breath, he recounted the events of the previous day, describing the elderly couple, their vulnerability, and how he'd felt compelled to help them. He explained how he had spent the money he'd saved up for her gift to pay their restaurant bill, hoping she'd understand his decision. As he spoke, he watched her face, searching for a sign of empathy or at least a spark of understanding. But Amelia's expression remained closed, her brow furrowing as he finished his explanation. "If you find it interesting, please like it. If not, please comment number 1. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video." "So, you're saying you gave away my birthday gift to some strangers?" Her tone was laced with disappointment, and Liam felt his stomach sink as she continued, her voice soft but steady. "I mean, I get that you wanted to help, but couldn't you have found another way? This was supposed to be special. For us." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He'd always admired Amelia's kindness, her openness toward others, yet her reaction now left him feeling alone in his decision. Trying to bridge the gap between them, he attempted to explain his thoughts, his voice quiet and careful. "Amelia, I'm really sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't plan for this to happen, but when I saw them, I knew I couldn't just walk away. It felt important." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression softening slightly but still tinged with a hint of resentment. "I get that you care about people, Liam. But sometimes, I feel like you care about everyone else more than you care about me." With those words, she turned and walked back into the party, leaving Liam standing alone, the sounds of celebration feeling suddenly distant. He replayed her words in his mind, struggling to reconcile his own actions with her response. A sense of frustration mingled with his sadness as he tried to understand her perspective, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd made the right choice, even if it had come at a cost. The rest of the party passed by in a blur, and though he attempted to rejoin the festivities, he found himself distracted, his mind returning again and again to the painful conversation with Amelia. Her reaction left him questioning himself in a way he hadn't anticipated, and a quiet resolve began to form within him as he realized the path he had chosen would not always be easy or well understood. Walking home that evening, the weight of Amelia's words lingered heavily on his shoulders, but alongside it was a new awareness, a sense that he was at a turning point in his life. The choice he had made, to prioritize kindness over personal satisfaction, felt like a defining moment, one that hinted at the kind of person he aspired to become. A few days after the painful confrontation with Amelia, Liam was walking through the city again, his mind restless as he thought about everything that had unfolded. The city's busy hum filled the air, and as he turned down a familiar street, he noticed a figure near the recycling bins behind a row of shops. To his surprise, it was Grace and Hank, carefully sorting through discarded cans and bottles, collecting anything that could be redeemed for spare change. They worked quietly, seemingly unaware of the world around them, their movements calm but deliberate. Liam's heart went out to them once more. He approached, calling out, "Grace? Hank?" They looked up, startled but quickly smiling as they recognized him. Grace's face lit up with the same warmth that had touched him when they first met, and Hank offered a nod, his eyes grateful. They exchanged greetings, and without needing to ask, Liam joined them, helping gather items from the bins. As they worked together, Grace began sharing snippets of their story, as if sensing Liam's curiosity and kindness. She spoke about the struggles they'd faced, times of both hardship and resilience. "We've seen a lot, Liam," she said softly, her voice filled with memories. "It's not easy getting by, but we make do." Hank added quietly, "People don't always see the journey. They only see where you are now." He gave Liam a knowing look, as though he understood more than he was saying. Listening to their words, Liam felt a renewed sense of admiration for them. Their honesty and resilience left a deep impression, reinforcing his commitment to standing by his principles, even if it meant facing difficult choices or misunderstandings. The simplicity of their wisdom resonated with him, encouraging him to trust in his own decisions. Over the following days, Liam found himself spending more time with Grace and Hank, learning about their values, their memories, and the way they had managed to keep going despite the challenges they faced. It was during one of these conversations that Liam learned something unsettling from a mutual friend, Jaden, who worked at the restaurant Tom owned. Jaden confided, in a hesitant whisper, that Tom's son, Aaron, had been the one to steal Grace and Hank's wallet on the day of their encounter, pocketing it when no one was watching. The revelation infuriated Liam. Knowing that the elderly couple had suffered humiliation because of Aaron's actions, he felt an intense urge to confront Tom and Aaron about their cruelty. However, he also realized that such a confrontation could jeopardize Jaden's job. Jaden had risked his position by sharing the information, trusting Liam to handle it discreetly. Caught between his desire for justice and the loyalty he felt toward Jaden, Liam wrestled with the moral dilemma. He couldn't ignore the injustice, but he also didn't want to place his friend in an uncomfortable or potentially dangerous situation. The decision weighed heavily on him, filling him with frustration and uncertainty. In the days that followed, he attempted to find a way to address the situation without involving Jaden. Every time he passed the restaurant, a pang of anger flared up inside him, yet he reminded himself of the importance of protecting his friend. Grace and Hank had taught him the value of resilience, and he knew he would need patience to find a way to make things right without causing unnecessary harm. Despite the unresolved conflict, his friendship with Grace and Hank deepened. They continued sharing stories from their lives, offering him guidance and perspective that he hadn't realized he needed. Liam began to understand the significance of choosing one's battles wisely and the impact of kindness, even when faced with adversity. The more time he spent with them, the more he felt himself growing, developing a sense of purpose rooted in compassion and strength. One evening, as they sat together watching the city lights fade into the night, Grace turned to him, her eyes filled with a quiet, enduring strength. "Liam, remember that kindness often demands more courage than anger," she said. Her words echoed in his mind, resonating deeply as he reflected on the choices he had yet to make. This realization brought a certain clarity to his thoughts. He understood that standing up for others sometimes required waiting for the right moment, ensuring that no one would be hurt in the process. With a renewed sense of patience, he decided to bide his time, determined to seek justice for Grace and Hank when the opportunity would least endanger those he cared about. Weeks passed, and Liam continued to look for an opportunity to help Grace and Hank without involving Jaden or stirring trouble with Tom. During this time, his bond with the elderly couple grew even stronger. Their resilience and quiet wisdom became a source of strength for him, and he found himself deeply inspired by their courage and generosity. One chilly autumn evening, Liam met with Grace and Hank at a small cafe near the park, where they usually gathered to talk and enjoy a warm drink. The conversation started with their usual updates, stories of life's small triumphs and struggles. But then, after a moment of comfortable silence, Grace shared something unexpected. "Liam," she began with a slight smile, her gaze gentle but piercing, "there's something we haven't told you." Liam looked up, surprised, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. Hank nodded, his expression one of quiet amusement, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "We haven't been entirely honest about our circumstances," Hank added, his eyes twinkling with a hidden depth that Liam hadn't noticed before. He felt a rush of curiosity and confusion, unsure of where this was going. "What do you mean?" Liam asked, genuinely intrigued. Grace exchanged a glance with Hank, as if they were sharing an unspoken understanding. Then, in a calm, measured tone, she explained, "We're not exactly who you think we are, Liam. The truth is, we're actually quite well off." The revelation took Liam completely by surprise. He stared at them, struggling to process what he had just heard. All those days he had seen them collecting recyclables, wearing simple clothes, and living modestly had painted a different picture entirely. Seeing his shock, Hank smiled warmly, a touch of pride in his expression. "We wanted to see the true nature of people," he explained. "Money can often cloud judgment, and sometimes, the most genuine acts of kindness come from those who expect nothing in return." Grace nodded. "You've shown us something remarkable, Liam," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Your kindness was selfless. You didn't help us because you thought we could reward you. You helped because it was the right thing to do." Liam felt a mix of emotions, relief, amazement, and a strange sense of validation. The doubts he had wrestled with, the frustration he'd felt, all seemed to dissolve in that moment. Everything he had sacrificed felt worthwhile, justified by the sincerity in Grace's and Hank's words. After a brief pause, Grace continued. "We'd like to offer you an opportunity, Liam. We see great potential in you, a strength of character that's rare. If you're willing, we'd like you to work with us, to learn and grow. You have a bright future ahead of you, and we'd be honored to help you shape it." Liam could hardly believe what he was hearing. The offer was more than he could have ever imagined. Working with Grace and Hank would open doors he'd never dreamed of, giving him a chance to make a difference far beyond what he thought possible. He felt deeply moved, his heart swelling with gratitude and purpose. "Thank you," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what to say. I'm honored." Hank reached over, giving his shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Just be yourself, Liam. That's all we ask." The weight of the moment settled around them, a shared understanding that needed no further words. For Liam, this marked a turning point, a moment when his values and choices had not only been recognized but had opened a path to a future shaped by purpose and compassion. As they left the cafe together, the city lights casting a warm glow over their faces, Liam felt a renewed sense of direction, knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would allow him to grow, to make a meaningful impact, and to carry forward the legacy of kindness that Grace and Hank had instilled in him. In the months following his life-changing encounter with Grace and Hank, Liam threw himself into learning all he could under their guidance. His afternoons, once spent wandering the city or lost in his own thoughts, were now filled with lessons in business, ethics, and the art of resilience. Grace and Hank introduced him to the inner workings of their company, a successful yet socially conscious venture focused on community support and sustainable growth. Liam absorbed everything they taught him, feeling a sense of belonging and purpose that he had never felt before. His days were busy but deeply fulfilling. He saw firsthand how a business could not only generate profit but also serve as a force for good in the community. Grace often reminded him, "A business is only as valuable as the lives it touches," and those words resonated deeply within him. Under their mentorship, he discovered not only the technical skills needed to manage a business but also the moral foundation that shaped their decisions. Grace and Hank treated their employees with respect, contributed to community projects, and encouraged Liam to always consider the impact of his actions on others. Through this journey, Liam felt himself growing, evolving from a teenager unsure of his place in the world into a young adult with a clear sense of purpose. His confidence blossomed as he found his voice within the company, contributing ideas and eventually taking on small projects. The company's supportive environment nurtured his growth, and for the first time, he began to see himself as someone capable of making a difference, of building a future where his values aligned with his actions. One evening, as a gesture of gratitude, he organized a celebration dinner for his mother, Linda, who had always supported him through every stage of his life. It was a modest but heartfelt gathering, attended by a few close friends and colleagues who had come to respect him. Linda was filled with pride, her eyes bright with joy as she watched her son become someone of integrity and compassion. However, among the guests that evening, two familiar faces stood out, Amelia and Aaron. They hadn't seen each other since Liam's friendship with Grace and Hank had shifted his focus and priorities. As the evening unfolded, Amelia and Aaron, caught off guard by the warmth and confidence radiating from Liam, exchanged whispers, unable to conceal their surprise. Their expressions betrayed traces of jealousy and resentment, perhaps regretful of their dismissive attitudes toward him in the past. Amelia approached him, her tone laced with a mix of nostalgia and hesitation. "You've changed, Liam," she murmured, her gaze softer than he remembered. She paused, as though searching for the right words. "I didn't realize you were capable of all this." Liam met her gaze calmly, his expression unfazed. He had learned to let go of the past, to accept that some people might never understand his choices. The experiences he had shared with Grace and Hank had taught him to remain grounded, focused on what truly mattered. Aaron, meanwhile, attempted to undermine him with a half-hearted jab about his decision to spend time with a couple of poor strangers back then, but his words fell flat. Liam's self-assurance was unshakable, his sense of purpose too deeply rooted to be affected by their shallow opinions. Surrounding him were people who believed in him, his mother's pride, and the genuine support of his mentors. For the first time, he felt liberated from the need to seek approval from those who hadn't valued him. In the supportive presence of his mother and the colleagues who had witnessed his growth, he found the strength to rise above past hurts. The evening became a celebration not just of his accomplishments but of the lessons he had learned along the way, lessons about loyalty, integrity, and the power of compassion. As the gathering drew to a close, Grace and Hank pulled him aside. They expressed how proud they were of him, not just for his accomplishments but for remaining true to himself despite the challenges. They had seen something in him from the beginning, a potential that went beyond skills or knowledge, a potential rooted in character and values. "Liam," Grace said with a smile, "you've made us proud. Not because of what you've achieved, but because of the person you've chosen to be." Hank nodded in agreement. "It's been an honor watching you grow, Liam. Whatever path you choose, remember that your values are your strength." Their words left him deeply moved, reinforcing his resolve to continue the journey they had started together. He felt a profound sense of gratitude, knowing that he was supported not only by mentors but by people who had become like family to him. The experiences they had shared would remain a part of him, guiding him as he took his next steps. As Liam walked home that night, a quiet confidence settled within him. He had found his purpose, a vision that went beyond personal ambition and was grounded in the principles of kindness and integrity that Grace and Hank had instilled in him. The past had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. He was ready to move forward, embracing the future with a heart strengthened by the lessons of compassion and resilience. In the years that followed, Liam's journey continued, marked by both achievements and moments of reflection. Grace and Hank had entrusted him with not only the values that guided their lives but also, eventually, their company. When they passed away suddenly, Liam felt an overwhelming sense of loss, as though he had lost family members who had shaped him in ways no one else could. Their absence left a void, yet within that emptiness, he found a profound responsibility, a legacy he was determined to carry forward. The company was now his, an inheritance he had not anticipated but accepted with humility. He approached his role as CEO with a dedication to honoring Grace and Hank's vision. The weight of the responsibility was immense, yet he embraced it, driven by a commitment to uphold the principles they had instilled in him. Liam focused on expanding their work, channeling the company's resources into projects that aligned with the values of community, kindness, and integrity. One of his first initiatives was the creation of scholarships for underprivileged students, opening doors for young people who, like him, might only need a chance to unlock their potential. The scholarship program was named in memory of Grace and Hank, a tribute to the impact they had on his life and the lives of countless others. Each time he met with scholarship recipients, he saw a glimpse of himself in their eyes, hopeful, determined, and grateful for an opportunity to make a difference. Additionally, Liam launched a healthcare initiative aimed at providing medical resources and support to communities lacking access to quality care. This project, deeply personal to him, reminded him of the resilience he had witnessed in Grace and Hank. He wanted their legacy to live on not just within the walls of the company but in the hearts of the people who benefited from its outreach. In these years, Liam found purpose beyond profit, realizing that true success was measured by the positive changes he could bring to others. The gratitude he felt for his journey fueled his work, propelling him forward even on days when the weight of responsibility felt heavy. Through every challenge, he remembered the guidance he had received, the wisdom of those who had believed in him from the beginning. At a charity gala celebrating the success of the scholarship and healthcare initiatives, Liam crossed paths with Alana, a passionate volunteer whose dedication to social causes resonated with his own values. Alana was kind, driven, and deeply compassionate, a woman who shared his vision of making a lasting impact on the world. They quickly discovered a shared sense of purpose, and over time, their bond deepened into something more meaningful. Alana's support and shared ideals brought him a sense of companionship he hadn't known before. Together, they envisioned a future where their combined efforts would leave a legacy of compassion and resilience, a tribute to the values Grace and Hank had taught him. With Alana by his side, Liam felt a renewed sense of hope, realizing he had found someone who understood him on a deeper level, a partner who valued him not for his success, but for the person he had become. As they planned future projects, expanding their outreach and finding new ways to uplift communities, Liam reflected on how far he had come. His journey, which began with a single act of kindness, had transformed his life, guiding him toward a path he had never imagined. He had once been a young boy standing up for two strangers, and now he was a man dedicated to honoring their legacy, ensuring that the kindness they had shown him would ripple out into the world. Looking ahead, Liam felt both the weight and the beauty of his role. He knew that the road before him would not always be easy, but with Alana's support and the memory of Grace and Hank as his guiding light, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would continue to build a future grounded in compassion, carrying forward a legacy that would inspire others long after they were gone. In this new chapter, Liam found peace, fulfillment, and a profound sense of purpose, a life devoted to service, resilience, and love. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.